Hello, everyone. It's Nicole from HBCU 20x20. We're super excited to host professionals from Lululemon. Now, we know about Lululemon. You do the yoga with a nice, comfortable pants, but there are so many other opportunities and things to learn about Lululemon. And we're so fortunate to have a panel here just to talk about their individual journeys to get into Lululemon, but beyond that, just what you can do to take your career to the next level. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first panelist. And after that, we'll dive into questions. We'll make sure that you all are still connected and have an opportunity to connect with our panelists after, but we just want to make sure that everything is good and that you all have everything that you need. With that being said, I'm going to pass the mic over to Sienna.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole, for having me. My name is Sienna Walker. I am the Associate Systems Engineer, a part of our technology team here. I recently graduated myself from Arizona State University with a Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering. So I'm still based here in Arizona, Chandler to be specific. And yeah, so my journey to Lululemon, I would say, was a bit out of the ordinary. I started in stores in October 2020, basically as a retail floor sales associate. And from there, after I graduated, I eventually applied for the IDEA Global Internship Program. So I was able to get up into the corporate space that way, went through that program, and ultimately just accepted my full-time offer to stay on my current team. And I've been doing that since about the beginning of December. So yeah, that is how I got here, and I hope this will be the start of a really nice, long, and successful career. And I'll go ahead and pass it over to Stacia.
Thank you, Sienna. I'm Stacia Jones, Vice President, Global Head of Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Action here at Lululemon. Unlike Sienna, I did not graduate recently. It was a long time ago. I graduated in '97 from undergrad and in 2000 from law school at The Ohio State University. I came to Lululemon about 15 months ago, so pretty recent. And I had moved to the Seattle area, and a position came open. This VP of IDEA came open. And at the time, I was looking to get back into retail after having spent many years at another large retail company. And after having spoken with the people at Lululemon, really saw the passion around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what the senior leadership team wanted to do around IDEA at the company. So it really was, the passion was quite contagious, and I was excited to join on. And I will turn it over to Elliott.
I had to put myself on mute because I was so excited to hear Sienna and Stacia talk about their journey. So I think what's different, I've been at Lululemon much longer, so 4.5 years. And what's the same is I have the same graduation dates as Stacia. So we're rocking with the same, music references, the same cultural references there. But yeah, I attended the University of Memphis, graduated from there in 1996. Went on to have now about a 23-year career in retail, most of it merchandise planning. And I like to tell people I've worked with brands that sell everything from Bleach to Gucci. So I started out my career in convenience retail with Dollar General Corporation. And before coming to Lululemon, I worked for a very high-end fashion retailer called Opening Ceremony in New York. I came to Lululemon to really help drive one of the company's major growth initiatives in men's. So I led the men's planning and allocations team, and then added accessories. But the most important thing that happened during my time at Lululemon is I really got an opportunity to focus on my passion, which is leadership and team development, which allowed me to transform into the current role I have, which is Senior Vice President of Product for APAC and China. Actually, right now, I'm coming to you live and direct from Singapore on my way back to Hong Kong. So exciting time for myself and the family and the new team that we're building in the region. An exciting time for Lululemon in the sense that, Lululemon has always had some really strong values around connection. And what does that value of connection mean in terms of all the communities that we can serve? And that infectious conversation that Stacia was describing around diversity, inclusion, equity, and action is born out of that desire to have those foundational values that Lululemon aspires to really come to life in how we and who we speak to. So glad to be here and happy to connect with all of you all. Mirrick.
Thanks, Elliott. So hi, everyone. My name is Mirrick. I'm the program manager for internships here at Lululemon. And I've been here since December 2020, originally from the UK, but have been living in Vancouver since 2018. My career started with a brief stint as a flight attendant, and then I decided to take myself off to law school. And I then practiced as an employment and labour lawyer for about 7 years in London, before transitioning into a career in HR, or people and culture, as we call it here at Lululemon. And my HR sort of career has included leading some awesome teams in the sort of campus recruitment and emerging talent space, working in learning and development, and then also some work as a HR generalist as well. But the stuff that's really lit me up and where my real passion is in the emerging talent space, because you get an opportunity to really help people to kind of realize their potential. And then when you pair that up with working as a kind of talent acquisition person, you're bringing them into an organization and you're supporting their growth and development as you see their journey through. So some really, really great stuff, and hence the reason why I'm here in this role. So really excited to be here today and to share a little bit later more about the different sort of opportunities here at Lululemon. But for now, I'll pass the ball back to you, Nicole.
Thank you all for that round of introductions. We learned so much in just a short period of time, but I feel like we got to dive a little bit deeper. So I think I want to start with Sienna. I know that you haven't been with Lululemon too long, but you really have worked up like your way up to where you are now. What attracted you to Lululemon to begin with? And what made you say, you know, this is a company I truly want to build my career with? Because I think that that's something you alluded to at the end, you know, like I can see myself at Lululemon. What brought that to you, or what aspect of Lululemon causes you to feel that way?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question. So like I said, I started my journey in stores, and I think what drew me initially to even want to walk in the store in the first place was the people. Once I was able to land that job in stores, I had a really supportive development and leadership team that ultimately pointed me in the direction of, hey, this internship sounds like you, maybe this is something you want to pursue. And then ever since landing in corporate as well, same exact thing. I had some really great mentors, or what we called in the internship program, buddies, that really kind of helped formulate not only my technical skill set, but also just feeling confident, I think, in the space. Having my confidence built up in the technology world has been huge for me, because it's so often that as a young Black woman in STEM, you're going to be pushed out, or your voice isn't going to be heard, or just things of that nature. So just the welcoming committee, I think, that I received from corporate has really kept me going. And yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, I think that it does a great job of answering my question. I think I want to pose the same question for Stacia.
You know, I have been in retail for a long period of time. And since around 2008, I was in retail outside of Lululemon looking in. And retail has had a very difficult time since 2008. And so I was at companies and saw companies that with retail, you know, was kind of going that way. All the while that was happening, that was not the case with Lululemon. And as a person from the outside, I'm like, what is going on? It's like all the rest of us are going here. Lululemon just keeps rising and rising. And there were a number of people who I had worked with who had come over to Lululemon, talked about the culture, and just what was happening in Lululemon. So that was just really exciting in the summer of 2020 to see that Lululemon was looking for a position that I knew that I could come in and really be an asset to the company in that area. And to be able to do that as a successful company, that certainly was my initial draw. And then, as I was indicating earlier, in interviews I then had, really saw that the culture is what people had described to me, and really saw that there was this desire to really be a leader in the space of equity, diversity, and inclusion. So I knew it was the place for me.
Thank you for sharing that. It seems like coming into the company, you all already had kind of some sort of preconceived notions about it, and they were all positive, and they ended up still being positive. So that's helpful to know. But I'm curious, Elliott, you've been here a little bit longer, is it true? It must be.
Look, don't let the smooth taste fool you. I'm a pretty old guy, so I've had the opportunity, like Stacia, to experience and Mirrick to experience several different company cultures. And there's this phenomenon that happens when you walk into a corporate office, right? So about 10 feet past the front door, there's usually some banner or some wall that has values on it that talks about how the company would like for you to view them. Lululemon is no different. Where Lululemon is different, in most companies, when you go another 10 feet past that wall or that banner, you start to see that what's up on that wall or banner is not necessarily true. But I'd say at Lululemon, it definitely rings true in the approach to the business and the approach to people. Having said that, I think that there's been a growing awareness around the potential that Lululemon has as a brand for all people, not only working in the brand, but offering products and services to people. And I think that there's been work that we need to do to get to that potential. And Stacia's speaking to it in the commitment to IDEA being our D&I effort within the company, just recognizing that, where Lululemon has been in terms of its focus and its brand positioning, it hasn't always been the most welcoming place for people of color, people of diverse backgrounds. And that's the work that we're in. And there's a commitment to really presenting a different future for the company and the people within it and the communities that we serve. So yeah, when I got to Lululemon 4.5 years ago, the experience that I had walking through the doors at that time, even though the values that were written on the wall rang very true, there's been a journey of growth around inclusion that we've been on, and I'm glad that I've been a part of it. And there's much more progress that we can make.
I say a lot of respect to you for that, because I think that a lot of people don't always feel as vulnerable saying, this is where we were, this is where we are, and this is where we're going. And I think it's beautiful. You all, when you hear employees say that, because, we do these kind of conversations, and many of you all tune in, and hopefully if you haven't, you can go back and watch the other videos. But, it's important when you hear professionals say, it wasn't the best, but we're getting better, and we're going to take it to become the best. And, we want you all to know that that's the kind of environment that you want to be in. You want to be with a company who's admitting, that we can do better, and we're going to do better. And you coming in is just a piece of the puzzle. And, the ideas that you'll be able to potentially contribute are also a big piece of that puzzle as well. So thank you, Elliott, for that. I'm going to head back to Sienna. So I know that you just finished the IDEA Global Internship, which transitioned into you becoming a full-time employee at Lululemon, specifically as an associate systems engineer. Can you talk a little bit more about how Lululemon was able to support you in those endeavors? And I know that you touched on it a little bit before, but are there any kind of tangible things that you feel Lululemon contributed or helped you, get to where you are right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I can think of two off the top of my head, two tangible items. I think the first being, I am a part of 2 employee resource groups here at Lululemon. So the first being the Black Employee Resource Group, and the second being the Women in STEM. And I think just being able to have the space throughout my work week or month or whatever it is to come together and talk with like-minded or people that have the same experiences that I do has really been great in grounding me, I think, emotionally, because of course I'm here to set myself up for success and make a difference in the end. But at the same time, that can be really, really difficult to do alone, especially because I work remote. So for the chance to have that kind of authentic connection with people that also don't necessarily work in tech has been huge for me. And I think the second, so going back to the mentorship that I experienced through the internship program, that continued well after the internship ended as well. As I'm the only, or sorry, let me back up. I would say during college, I didn't really know very many engineers myself that were established in their career already. So it was really difficult for me to pinpoint what certifications are even out there. What can I do to expand my toolbox and stuff like that to hopefully have those type of transferable skills in the end. And I was able to have some really real conversations with people on my team about, this is a really, really good certification to get. So I just recently passed my AWS certification to be a certified cloud practitioner. And that entire journey was self-started by one of my fellow coworkers. So I think just to be able to be connected to people who have been so ingrained in tech and have so much experience, and to be able to pass that on to me, I think has been a huge, huge support. And yeah.
Well, I'll say that's key. I think that, with HBCU 20x20, we have our HBCU Tech Forward Fellowship Program. And a big piece of that is ensuring the students know, you will probably already have the hard skills, you're probably already working on the technical skills, but it's those soft skills, but then also beyond that, those interpersonal skills that you have to develop. And I think that it sounds like that's what Lululemon was able to provide, in addition to a support system that continues on. And I think that's really, really beautiful. And as you said, especially being a Black woman in tech, I know that it's not always the easiest, but it's amazing to know that your company has your back, and it sounds like that's what they have had for you. So my next question is for Elliott. So you recently moved over to Hong Kong from Vancouver to serve the Asian Pacific region for products. Can you talk a little bit more about how that opportunity came? When I think, I'm just so curious. I'm excited to hear this too.
Well, first of all, you might be able to tell by the slight twang in my voice that I'm not Canadian. I'm actually from Nashville, Tennessee. So quite the journey to get from Nashville all the way to Vancouver and now to Hong Kong. I think there's two things that kind of describe the journey for me and are actually also a little bit of advice that I point out. So I've always been a growth junkie. And what does that mean? Well, I've been obsessed with making sure I put myself in a position to continue to grow my skill set and my perspective. And what that has meant for me over the years is I've tried not to focus on what's next, but focus on where I want to be last. And what that means is, there's an impact that I want to have as a professional, as a father, as a community leader, at the end of the day, many, many years from now. And what skill sets, what exposures, what experience do I need to have in order to have that impact, that final impact that I'm trying to get to? And by focusing on that, along the way, I've picked up different experiences that maybe weren't initially on my roadmap, but fit into what I need to develop to have that final impact. So, believe me, when I woke up January 1st, 2021, I had no idea that I was going to be moving to Hong Kong. But when the opportunity was presented to me, it checked all the boxes in what I needed to do to continue that development path on the way to what I ultimately want to drive for the world and for my family. So that's one. So think about what's last, not just what's next. I think it is a journey, and I think you'd be surprised how many people and how many resources are available to you in that journey when you're able to speak about what it is you want at the end of that journey. You know, this opportunity that I'm in right now came about because I had expressed a want to lead teams internationally. And because I expressed that want, an opportunity did make itself available. I had to invest in myself, however, to make that come to life. I had to study up on what it meant to lead in a different culture. But you know, using your voice to really speak to what it is that you want out of your career in life, I think is really important to enable that journey.
So Stacia, I know that you lead Lululemon's D&I team. This is a new frontier in a way for Lululemon, but so much has been accomplished since 2020. Can you talk a little bit more about your journey, what your vision was when you came to Lululemon, how your team that you helped build kind of helped support that vision? You know, can you just walk us through, you know, potentially what the future looks like for D&I at Lululemon?
Oh, my vision for idea at Lululemon is that Lululemon really be a leader in this space. Our company is very much about wellness. We are very much about bringing that to the communities that we serve and having a real impact in the world beyond Lululemon. So when talking about idea and what we are going for, we want to provide safe spaces for our employees, for our guests, for our business partners, for our communities, to talk about real topics that really impact us. I believe that the corporate world from a D&I perspective really has to go on a journey from being a place that is worried about just the numbers, dollar signs, how much money it is going to make, revenue, et cetera, going from that place to a place of culture and being concerned about all of the people that it serves and that it impacts. And so what I am hoping is that with Lululemon, that ultimately we get to a place where companies can look to us to see how is it that we can truly live through culture and better everyone who comes into contact with us. How can we value all the ways in which people are different? How can we help people to really feel that they can come to work, bring their whole selves to work, and be able to really get the most out of people because of how we value them and how we make sure that we are providing equitable, safe spaces for everybody. So doing that again for all the people who touch Lululemon, and then be an example for that so that we have an impact well beyond Lululemon.
Thank you for sharing that. I have a question. Can you
Sure.
talk a little bit more about what IDEA is?
Yes. So IDEA is inclusion, diversity, equity, and action. So inclusion, and we have inclusion first because we understand that that is the most important thing. There are a lot of companies that go into trying to increase representation and diversity, just bring in the numbers. When you do that, and that is your sole focus, what you are doing is creating a revolving door for people to come in and go right back out. So we understand that it's not just about increasing numbers, but it's about bringing people in and giving people an experience where they can feel included and valued, just like anyone else that's with the company. So inclusion is all about people coming in, employees in our workplace, our guests who are coming into our stores and online, our business partners who have to partner with us for our product, et cetera, and then our communities where we are. We want everyone to feel included and special when they come in contact with Lululemon. Then diversity very much is about honoring and celebrating all the ways in which we are different, and allowing people to understand that at Lululemon, you do not have to be ashamed of who you are, and you can display all the beautiful ways in which you are who you are. In terms of equity, that very much is about an understanding that we are going beyond simply equality. Equality is something that we are just trying to say that people have an equal opportunity. There's this cartoon that I love, and there's a person who's sitting behind a desk, and on the opposite side of the desk are a number of animals like elephant, you know, a monkey, a cheetah, some bugs and birds and everything else. And there's a big giant tree behind them. And the person sitting at the desk says, okay, to get this job, the only test or the one thing that you have to do is climb that tree. So everybody, you know, go and climb the tree and then you can have the job. And that is something that's equality, that we're allowing all of you the opportunity to go and try to climb that tree. Well, there are people who are not able to climb that tree, or these animals and bugs are not able to climb the tree for different reasons. And in the real world outside of that cartoon, we understand that we come from a history, we come from a background, and there's baggage, there's bias, there's all kinds of things that play into it that makes it such that if you put a test in front of everyone, or you put an interview in front of everyone, it might be equality, but it's not equity, because there are things that are going to hold us back and not allow each of us to be able to perform. So with equity, we know that we may have to do things to help have really a true level place and workplace for people to come in and to use. And this goes to with respect to immutable characteristics such as race and gender and age and all those things, and certainly also to physical and mental disabilities. And then the action is just all of the action that we're getting into. You know, again, there are a number of companies, especially since George Floyd, that made commitments, but there's no action behind it. You know, we're committed to doing X, Y, Z, but didn't set up metrics and data to then make sure to verify that we're doing it, to measure it, and then to say, okay, these are the adjustments we need to make. We instead are about action. So we said this is what our commitment is, and we're putting action behind everything that we're saying. So that is the whole IDEA.
I love it, and y'all, Lululemon is about that action. Yeah, it's really beautiful to hear, because I think that, you know, as you mentioned, a lot of companies had a lot of pledges and promises, and, you know, very idealistic about what they wanted to do, you know, but hearing that you're even the E not being equality, it being equity, and you being able to say that, you know, I think, you know, to those of you watching, you don't hear a lot of companies talk like this. I'm just saying, we talk to a lot of companies, they're not talking like this. And you know, I think that it speaks volumes to what you all are doing, you know, and the vision and what you can do moving forward, because it is the action piece. The action piece is the piece that says, you know, we don't want to be that revolving door. We really want to create this community where everyone feels like they're of value and are adding value. So thank you for sharing that insight. And also the notion that, you know, that yearning for, like, I want to grow, I want to like try something new, I want like a new challenge, you know, that's very commendable. And I think to the students watching, you know, we hope that you also channel that. I think we've heard all the panelists channel that in some way, shape, or form. So always be looking out for opportunities, be aware, figure out where you can grow, figure out where your skills, how you can strengthen your skill sets, and how that can be an asset, and maybe even a different department. You know, there's no telling where you can go. So I know that this is my last question or round of questions, but Sienna, what advice would you give to students or recent graduates from HBCUs who want to stand out when applying for a role in technology?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I just have to first say that being a recent grad is a really tough experience. You're transitioning through a lot, and it can be extremely daunting. You know, looking at job descriptions where you have so many boxes to check, and you may or may not check all those boxes. So in order to stand out, especially if you're looking to go into a technology space or technology role, something that I really leaned into was just my previous project experience. Not so much in the sense of this is what I accomplished, but more so, how does that support my learning? How does that support my growth? What types of things did I have to overcome or go through during this project? Because it's pretty common that, you know, you may or may not have previous job experience or internship experience that you're able to leverage. So what you really need to lean on is showing that you can be a quick learner. And to just kind of support that, I think an example is during my current role here, I had to learn how to code in JavaScript fairly quickly. And during my interview experience, I did talk about how during college, I learned how to code in C++ and Python and things of that nature, but I've never used JavaScript before. So just being able to show that this is something that I can learn in action, I think really did support me through learning JavaScript, just as a specific example. Lastly, I would say, at least for me, so one of the hardest things I had to get over was standing in my own way. I think I would look at a job description and say, yeah, I don't have 2+ years of experience in this, so maybe I just shouldn't apply. That is not a good, that's just not a good strategy. You need to be able to get your foot in the door, I think, and throw your name into the pile of names that they're going to be going through. It's a lot more common than you would think that all the other applicants also don't check all the boxes. So you kind of just need to put yourself out there, and yeah, you'll never know what happens.
No, this is some great piece of advice. I even just as like a sound bite to share with like our graduating seniors who are at that place where they're getting ready to walk across the stage and may have to figure out, you know, what my next steps are. So hearing, you know, from you that empowerment piece, you know, put your name in there. Like what, you know, what's the worst that could possibly happen? But then on the opposite end, what's the best that could probably happen? You know, you might end up with like an experience that'll change your life for the better, or you might end up in Hong Kong, you know, from Nashville. You know, you never know. So thank you for that. My next question is for Stacia. What's one learning experience or piece of advice that's really stuck with you throughout your journey?
You know, it's somewhat similar to what Sienna was just talking about, but I think it relates to comparing yourself to others and allowing that to negatively impact you. And so early in my career, when I was working at my law firm, I would oftentimes look at partners who had been working, practicing law for 10, 20+ years and think, oh my goodness, I don't know that I could do that. And instead of aspiring to get to a certain level, I took it in a more negative way and comparing myself and like, oh goodness, I don't measure up. You know, I'm a first or second year law student or lawyer, and I'm comparing myself to someone who's been practicing 20 years. It just makes no sense. But at some point, I must have been a 6th or 7th year lawyer, and I was out in Virginia litigating a case. And we were representing the defendant in the case. And I was there, and one of the partners who, he, you know, kind of was a very kind of loud person, very confident in his abilities. And it was so interesting that when he got up in front of the judge, he was sweating buckets. I mean, literally buckets. I could have put buckets under there. You could have taken them away. I mean, just to see him. Now, prior to that time, I had been in front of federal court judges arguing appeals, and I was nervous, but you didn't know it, or you didn't see the sweat, etc. But when I was sitting there watching him go through that, I just was thinking, I was able to say to myself, you know, other people also have shortcomings. Other people also have fears, etc. And what I have to do, and what people should do, is to focus on themselves. And that's what I should have been doing early on. If I want to be better at public speaking, if I want to be better at arguing in court, better at writing or whatever it is, just work on myself and my skills. Don't compare myself to others and then allow that to make me look down on myself and then negatively impact myself. So that is what I would say. Don't put people on pedestals and then compare yourself and then think less of yourself just because somebody who's been doing it for a gazillion years longer is doing it well.
It's like we just had church up in here.
I was just gonna say, I think I needed to hear that myself today.
Yeah, like me too, even as an entrepreneur. So y'all, that was some really, really great advice. I think that we hear like, a comparison is the theft of joy. But it can also be the theft of the matriculation of your career as well. So focus on yourself, focus on your self-growth, your professional growth, and developing yourself that way. So that was some great advice. So I think that this comes to the time where we ask Elliott to either, talk a little bit more about like a piece of advice you would share with the students, or, just any advice you would have just about, leveling up your career. What is, whichever you feel comfortable, or both and.
Yeah, Sienna talked about it a bit in terms of, what it means to be freshly out of school. It is a hard world to jump into at this point in time. And I guess I'd give two pieces of advice. Prioritize learning at this stage in your career over money. Now, listen, I'm not telling you money isn't important and you don't need to sell yourself short. We all have to support ourselves. But at this stage in your career, learning is so much more valuable. It will pay itself off tenfold as you matriculate through your career. And then the second thing I would say is, while you're learning, focus on impact. What impact can I make? Because that combination of learning and impact that you can travel with as artifacts of your career development throughout your career, that's going to be what gets you the job. It's not going to necessarily be, okay, I had this title or I worked at this company. People want to understand what impact you can make for their organization, and view that impact, not only the impact that you made in an organization or to a team or to a project, but also record the impact that you're making to your own development, how you are becoming a more well-rounded professional and community leader. Those things are really important. So I'd say learning over money right now and focus on impact.
That's definitely helpful to know. So when it comes to impact, it's almost like making sure you're able to back up your what you've been able to do. Is that okay? So that's a fair assessment. Now, when it comes to impact, I know that some of you all might be interested in learning how you can make an impact at, I don't know, Lululemon. So can you share a little bit more about what opportunities are available at Lululemon right now? How can students engage? How do they stay in touch? Is it, do they have to put on a pair of tights to come work at Lululemon? How do we get there?
So tights are optional. They don't have to put on the black stretchy pants. That's totally their choice. But what I would say is we're always on the lookout for awesome talent to join us. And all of those current opportunities that we've got available right now are on our Lululemon Careers website, which is accessible via our lululemon.com website as well. And there's a really neat kind of search functionality on there. So they can search by like keywords, area of the business, location, and a couple of other filters as well. So I definitely encourage viewers to go and check that out. And if the dream job isn't on there right now, doesn't mean it won't come up later on. So you can create an account and you can set job alerts as well, and then you'll receive a ping when something matches that criteria. So definitely recommend that as well as a next step. If anybody is interested in the IDEA Global Internship Program that Sienna referenced earlier, then there's going to be a lot more information coming about our 2022 program in the next couple of weeks. And we're going to be pushing a lot of that out on LinkedIn. So I would recommend that anybody follows the Lululemon sort of corporate account that we have on LinkedIn, and also connect with me on there as well, or follow me, because we'll be publishing more information on that. And there'll be plenty of other opportunities to engage with us as well via info sessions and many other sessions like that too. So definite place to go to keep up to date with what's coming soon in the next couple of weeks.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I know that we'll also be pushing it out in our newsletter and our text blast to make sure everyone knows about the amazing opportunities. But seriously, I know that we're coming to an end. This has just been honestly one of my favorite conversations to have. We want to thank you all for taking the time out to speak with the students and with the HBCU 20x20 community about your journeys to getting to Lululemon, tidbits and tips and advice on how they can take their journey and their professional careers to the next level. You know, I think that there was so much we learned, everything from putting yourself out there to knowing your worth, to learning and growing, and most importantly, understanding that you don't have to compare yourself to anyone else, that you are more than enough. Just keep getting better. That being said, thank you so much just for taking the time out to watch this. Be sure to apply for the opportunities using the link that was shared with this video. And we look forward just to seeing you all in your careers at Lululemon. That said, Nicole is signing out. Bye.